A political storm is brewing over the Texas state capitol, centered on the state's all-Republican Supreme Court. The court faces a monumental clash. Can Democratic lawmakers be expelled for leaving Texas to block a vote? Governor Abbott and Attorney General Paxton argue Democrats abandoned their duties. Democrats say it was a last resort protest. The justices have delayed a ruling, demanding more arguments, leaving Texas in suspense. This showdown began with a controversial redistricting map and a dramatic walkout. The conflict erupted in the heart of Texas politics, as Republican lawmakers launched a determined campaign to redraw the state's congressional map. Their goal was clear: to cement their party's hold on power by creating districts that would all but guarantee more GOP seats in Congress for years to come. The stakes were enormous, with the future of Texas representation, and potentially the balance of power in Washington, hanging in the balance. The proposed map, with its carefully drawn lines, was designed to tip the scales decisively in favor of Republicans, sparking outrage among Democrats who saw it as a blatant attempt to silence millions of voters. Facing a Republican majority, and unable to block the bill through debate or amendments, House Democrats realized they had only one option left. In a dramatic and unprecedented move, they broke quorum, walking out of the chamber en masse and effectively bringing the legislative process to a grinding halt. To prevent being compelled back to the Capitol by state authorities, dozens of Democratic lawmakers fled Texas entirely, boarding buses and planes under the cover of night. Their destination, Washington, D.C., where they hoped to draw national attention to their cause and pressure Congress to act on federal voting rights protections. Their strategy was simple, but risky. If they could stay away long enough, the special session would expire and the redistricting bill would die. Every hour away was a victory, but the clock was always ticking. Republican leaders, furious at what they saw as a flagrant disregard for duty, condemned the walkout as a dereliction of responsibility. They accused Democrats of abandoning their posts and the people who elected them, insisting that the legislative process was being held hostage. But for Democrats, this was a last stand for democracy itself. They argued that the walkout was a principled act of resistance, a necessary measure to protect fair representation and prevent the silencing of minority voices in Texas. The bold maneuver ignited a firestorm of controversy, dominating headlines and sparking protests across the state. Supporters and critics alike flooded the Capitol grounds, their voices echoing the deep divisions within Texas and the nation. As tensions mounted, both sides dug in, each framing the walkout in starkly different terms. For Republicans, it was a betrayal of the democratic process. For Democrats, it was a courageous defense of it. The standoff became a symbol of the broader national battle over voting rights and the future of American democracy, with each handshake refused or protest sign raised, adding fuel to the fire. Now, the legitimacy of this extraordinary tactic is being tested in the courts, where judges must decide whether breaking quorum is a violation of duty or a vital tool for minority voices. The outcome could reshape not just Texas politics, but the rules of American democracy itself. Republican leaders escalated the standoff, seeking to expel the absent Democrats from office. Attorney General Paxton filed a petition directly with the Texas Supreme Court, bypassing lower courts. The petition targeted 13 Democrats, including prominent figures like Jean Wu, arguing their absence created vacancies. Governor Abbott singled out ringleaders, making clear the consequences would be severe. Paxton's legal argument, prolonged absence equals abandonment of office under the Texas Constitution. This aggressive move aimed to turn the Democrats' protest into grounds for permanent removal. The outcome could reshape the balance of power in Texas. The Supreme Court became the battleground for constitutional interpretation. Republicans argued the Democrats' absence was permanent abandonment, creating a constitutional crisis. They urged the court to declare the seats vacant and allow special elections. Paxton insisted the urgency justified bypassing lower courts. The court, all Republican, faces a politically charged decision. Does it have the authority to expel elected officials for breaking quorum? Their caution in delaying a ruling shows the gravity of the precedent at stake. The justices must weigh legal arguments against the risk of judicial overreach. Democrats countered that leaving Texas was a political act, not abandonment. They continued legislative work remotely, arguing extraordinary measures were needed to represent their constituents. Their lawyers challenged the Supreme Court's jurisdiction, demanding a full trial in lower courts. They warned that judicial expulsion would violate the separation of powers and set a dangerous precedent. Democrats framed the lawsuit as a partisan attempt to punish opposition and force through the redistricting map. They argued their actions defended voting rights and fair representation. Breaking quorum, they insisted, was fulfilling their oath, not betraying it. The case, they said, is about protecting democracy, not undermining it. Breaking quorum is a time-honored, if extreme, Texas tradition. The tactic, which involves lawmakers intentionally absenting themselves to prevent the legislature from conducting official business, has deep roots in the state's political history. It's a dramatic move, often reserved for moments of intense partisan conflict, when the stakes are high and compromise seems impossible. Over the years, this maneuver has become a symbol of both protest and desperation, a last-ditch effort to halt legislation that one side believes would fundamentally alter the state's direction. Both parties have used it for over a century to block legislation they fiercely oppose. From the earliest days of the Texas legislature, lawmakers have recognized that sometimes the only way to make their voices heard is to refuse to show up. This strategy has been wielded by Democrats and Republicans alike, each using it as a tool to protect their interests and the interests of their constituents. The history books are filled with stories of tense standoffs, heated debates, and walkouts that brought the legislative process to a grinding halt. Notably, the 2003 Killer D's and the Texas 11 made headlines when they fled the state to block a controversial redistricting plan. These lawmakers left their homes and families behind, traveling to Oklahoma and New Mexico to deny the Texas House and Senate the quorum needed to pass the legislation. Their actions captured national attention, sparking debates about the limits of political protest and the responsibilities of elected officials. The standoff lasted for weeks, with both sides digging in and refusing to back down. And in 2021, Texas Democrats once again left the state, this time to protest sweeping new voting restrictions. Their departure was a bold statement against what they saw as an attack on voting rights, and it reignited a fierce debate over the use of quorum busting as a political tool. The lawmakers' absence stalled the legislative process for weeks, drawing national media coverage and support from activists across the country. Their protest was both a continuation of Texas tradition and a reflection of the deep divisions in modern American politics. In every case, the majority party has responded with political pressure, not judicial expulsion. Leaders have used public statements, media campaigns, and even threats of arrest to try to bring absent lawmakers back to the chamber. But despite the heated rhetoric and high stakes, the response has always remained within the realm of politics, not the courts. The idea of expelling a lawmaker for breaking quorum has long been considered a step too far, a line that should not be crossed in a functioning democracy. No lawmaker has ever been removed from office for breaking quorum. The empty seats and missing names on the roll call board have always been temporary, a sign of protest rather than permanent expulsion. This unwritten rule has helped preserve the delicate balance of power in the Texas legislature, allowing for passionate disagreement without resorting to extreme measures. Democrats argue this long history proves their actions are part of the legitimate political process, not an act of abandonment or dereliction of duty. They see themselves as standing up for their constituents and for democratic principles, using every tool at their disposal to fight for what they believe is right. For them, quorum busting is not just a tactic, it's a statement about the importance of minority rights and the need for robust debate in a healthy democracy. But now, Republicans' push for expulsion marks a radical departure from precedent. For the first time, the majority party is considering using the ultimate punishment to enforce attendance, raising serious questions about the future of legislative protest in Texas. This move could fundamentally alter the way the legislature operates, making it much harder for the minority to have a voice when they disagree with the majority's agenda. The current case could redefine the boundaries of legislative protest in Texas, setting a precedent that will shape the state's politics for generations to come. As lawmakers, legal experts, and citizens watch closely, the outcome will determine whether Texas continues its tradition of fierce, sometimes dramatic political battles, or whether a new era of stricter discipline and diminished dissent is about to begin. The court's ruling could upend Texas politics. If Democrats are expelled, the governor would call special elections, creating chaos and lowering the quorum threshold. Republicans could then pass the redistricting map and other legislation with little opposition. This would validate using the courts to neutralize minority tactics, setting a powerful precedent. Quorum breaking could become too risky to attempt, stripping the minority of leverage. Critics warn this would entrench one-party rule and erode checks on majority power. The decision will shape not just this session, but the future of Texas governance. The stakes are nothing less than the rules of political engagement. The battle has spilled into other arenas, spawning lawsuits and countersuits. Attorney General Paxton sued Beto O'Rourke's group for allegedly funding the Democrats' protest. A judge temporarily blocked further support. O'Rourke countersued, accusing Paxton of political harassment. The Texas House also imposed daily fines for future quorum breaks, adding financial pressure. These moves show the conflict is about more than redistricting. It's a symptom of deep polarization. Both sides are using every tool available: courts, rules, and public campaigns. The ripple effects have drawn in more actors, escalating the fight. Texas politics is now a battleground on multiple fronts. The Supreme Court showdown is a defining test for Texas democracy, a moment that will echo far beyond the marble halls of the state's highest court. The stakes are immense, and the eyes of the nation are fixed on Texas as it grapples with questions that cut to the heart of representative government. At stake is a fundamental question: is breaking quorum a legitimate form of protest, a tool for the minority to make their voices heard when all other avenues are blocked? Or is it an offense so grave that it warrants expulsion, a threat to the very functioning of the legislative process? Democratic lawmakers argue that their actions are not just about party politics, but about standing up for the people they represent. They say they're defending the core principles of democracy, ensuring that every Texan's voice is heard, especially when controversial legislation threatens to silence entire communities. On the other side, Republican leaders insist that walking out undermines the democratic process itself. They argue that elected officials have a duty to show up, debate, and vote, even when the outcome is uncertain or unpopular. To them, breaking quorum is a dangerous precedent that could paralyze government. The Supreme Court's ruling will do more than resolve a single dispute. It will set a powerful precedent, clarifying just how far majority parties can go to enforce their will, and how much room the minority has to resist. The decision will shape the boundaries of legislative power and minority rights for years to come. Other states are watching closely, aware that what happens in Texas could inspire similar battles elsewhere. This case could ignite a new era of judicialized partisan warfare, where courts become the final arbiters of political standoffs and legislative gridlock. The outcome will shape not only the limits of protest and the power of the courts, but also the very health of democracy in Texas. It will determine whether dissent is protected or punished, and whether the courts can act as a check on political overreach. This is more than a partisan fight, it's a battle over the future of governance in Texas. The decision will affect how lawmakers interact, how citizens engage with their government, and how democracy is practiced in the Lone Star State. As Texas awaits the decision, the nation watches for what comes next. The outcome here could set the tone for political conflict and cooperation across America, making this a pivotal moment not just for Texas, but for the entire country.